Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Bullock. I'm President and General Counsel of the Institute for Justice. The Institute for Justice is the national law firm for liberty. We are a nonprofit public interest law firm that litigates in defense of essential constitutional freedoms, and we're headquartered in Arlington, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. Central to the mission of the Institute for Justice is the protection of private property rights. And civil forfeiture is one of the most profound threats to private property rights in our nation today. Civil forfeiture is the power of the government to take your home, your business, your car, your cash, and other forms of property, regardless of whether you've been convicted or even charged with a crime. It is a power that most Americans can't believe exists in a country that is supposed to protect and respect property rights and rights to due process. In 2010, we launched an initiative to end civil forfeiture. And we did this through public advocacy in a wide variety of forums. Since that time, 29 states have changed their civil forfeiture laws, including 2 states that have abolished civil forfeiture entirely. Over 300 editorials have been published against civil forfeiture. We have published over 10 studies documenting the abuses of civil forfeiture laws throughout the country. And we have also filed close to 24 lawsuits challenging civil forfeiture. And our fight against civil forfeiture brought us to Philadelphia 4 years ago. Philadelphia had one of the worst civil forfeiture schemes in America. And we are very happy to announce today that that civil forfeiture program has ended. And we're going to talk about the end of the class action lawsuit that we filed 4 years ago. And joining me here at the podium, who we'll be hearing from momentarily, is Darpana Sheff, who's a senior attorney at IJ, who is the lead litigator of our team. David Radofsky, who was our local counsel in this case, who's a prominent lawyer here in Philadelphia. Chris and Markella Suravelis, we're their lead plaintiffs in our class action lawsuit. Also joining him was one of our clients, Nasir Geiger, who we're very pleased to be able to join us in the lawsuit and here today. And then wrapping things up for us today is Dan Albin, an attorney at IJ and also a key member of this team. So, Darpana.
Thank you, Scott. Good morning, and thank you all for coming. My name is Darpana Sheff. That's D-A-R-P-A-N-A. Last name Sheff, S-H-E-T-H. And I'm a senior attorney at the Institute for Justice and director of our national initiative to end forfeiture abuse. Today, the Institute for Justice has permanently dismantled Philadelphia's forfeiture machine. A landmark settlement agreement filed earlier this morning provides much long-awaited justice to more than 23,000 people who were stripped of their property and their constitutional rights. 4 years ago, we filed this federal class action to challenge the nation's largest municipal forfeiture program. For decades, Philadelphia had turned civil forfeiture into a machine, taking more than 1,200 homes, 3,500 vehicles, and over $50 million in cash from its residents, many of whom were never even charged with a crime. Philadelphia this machine was fueled through the direct financial incentive that civil forfeiture relies on. Police and prosecutors in Philadelphia could use civil forfeiture funds and pad their own budgets. They could use forfeiture revenue as they saw fit. And they used it to pay their own salaries as well. For decades, Philadelphia law enforcement amassed a forfeiture slush fund by filing cookie-cutter legal complaints by prosecutors who were paid completely using forfeiture funds in hearings run by these same prosecutors, in which property owners were given little to no notice and few procedural protections, but were instead forced to prove their own innocence in a sham courtroom in City Hall without any judge present. This was the now infamous Courtroom 478. This all ends today. In twin consent decrees, the City of Philadelphia, the District Attorney's Office, and Philadelphia's First Judicial District have agreed to sweeping reforms. No one in Philadelphia will now have to suffer the nightmare our clients had to face. First and foremost, the settlement agreement ends the perverse profit incentive. Forfeiture revenue will no longer go back to pad the budgets of police and prosecutors, but will now be directed back to communities who will use the money for drug treatment and prevention programs. This agreement now ensures that Philadelphia will no longer treat its citizens like walking bank accounts. Second, the agreement institutes sweeping procedural protections that were much needed to protect property owners. The agreement will transform the Kafkaesque process by which property was seized and forfeited into a procedure more befitting of the birthplace of our Constitution. Finally, the agreement takes all remaining forfeiture revenue and establishes a $3 million fund from which innocent property owners can get back every dollar they lost through forfeiture. 4 years ago, we stood in front of Independence Hall telling the world how Philadelphia was the ground zero for forfeiture abuse. Today, I can now take pride in saying that my hometown of Philadelphia can serve as a role model to other cities who are still using forfeiture. We have a message for all other cities and states using forfeiture and who are continuing to put the pursuit of revenue over the pursuit of justice. Do not wait to be sued. Look at today's agreement and decide for yourselves that your citizens too deserve better. I will now turn things over to our lead client, Chris Zaravellis, and his wife, Markella.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Chris Zaravellis. This is my wife, Markella. 4 years back, the city of Philadelphia came over to my house and literally throw me out of the house. Me, my wife, my kids, and we don't know what to do, so we can't back up. So we started fighting. So thank God we find the great lawyers, the great people around us, and help us. So I'm happy this ended today, and a lot of people, they're not going to lose their house again. They're not going to throw them on the streets like before. It's going to be the right way to do it. And I'm glad we fight, and I'm happy I'm one of them starting all this fight. So with these guys here today, we have a victory. Thank you very much.
And now you'll hear from Dan Albin, who will talk more about the history of this lawsuit.
Good morning, my name is Dan Albin, and I'm an attorney at the Institute for Justice. Over 4 years ago, the Institute filed a federal class action lawsuit to stop the widespread abuse of forfeiture in Philadelphia. Since then, we've filed hundreds of documents in court. We've interviewed hundreds of victims of forfeiture here in Philadelphia. We've added a plaintiff to our lawsuit and added a new set of defendants as well. And we've survived multiple motions to dismiss. As a direct result of this lawsuit, in the fall of 2015, Philadelphia closed its infamous Courtroom 478. And in November of 2015, we reached a settlement agreement on 2 of the claims in this lawsuit related to the seizure of people's homes, like what happened to the Zaravellis family, where people were being evicted without notice and told that they could not return to their home unless they agreed to not let their son, their grandson, or another close relative live in the home. And finally, today, we have reached a settlement agreement on the remaining claims, which ends Philadelphia's forfeiture machine. Now, this settlement agreement that we're reaching today is just the latest victory in a series of victories that IJ has achieved in our nationwide campaign to end forfeiture abuse. Policing for profit is finished in Philadelphia, but unfortunately it remains all too common throughout the United States. And so we are going to continue to fight forfeiture abuse from coast to coast until Americans' property rights are fully protected nationwide. We'd like to open it up for questions.
Can you explain a little bit more about what happened 4 years ago exactly in your situation? Yeah, just a little bit more details of how it all came about.
I was sitting in my home, you know, like a normal person. And police officers, they walked in. They said, well, you have to go. And I was like, have to go from where? This is my house. This is me. I work all my life for this house to support my family and live a normal life. And now you're telling me you gotta go on the streets, go where? They don't care. They said, go, wherever you wanna go, go. And I don't think so that was right. I said, I have nothing to do with it. Me personally. I was working hard for my life, support my family, but one of my family got the wrong way and did what he did. That was his fault. It wasn't the rest of us' fault. You want to do something with him, put him in jail or whatever, but you can't go after somebody else's house, somebody else's rights. So that's why I stood up for my own rights, for my other family rights. Because I know if somebody walked in my house, I can first look what he has in his pockets, and I don't think so anybody else does the same thing. You work on people in your house, that's who's my son. I didn't know nothing, he was involved with different stuff. But they came, they tried to take my house, the one I built all these years, and thrown out of my family. I don't think so that was the right thing to do. So that's why I did what I did. I stood up, I fight on the city hall, and thank God I find the right people, thank you very much, and they fight with us and save all other people, other families, so many. I never heard that before in my life, forfeiture, never. Not just me, but a lot of other people.
Was your son convicted?
No. No, they put him in, next day he was out. And then I find out what he was doing. I put him on rehab the next day. No, sorry, it wasn't the next day, it was a month later. I put him on rehab because I was a parent. I tried to save my son's life. I put him on rehab, and the same day I put him on rehab, before I go to the rehab, my wife calls me and tells me they're throwing us out of the house. No. Everybody can come with my position, I don't know. You know, it's a lot of more people. And the cop or the FBI agent, whatever it was, he told me, we do this every day, 3-4 times a day or 10 times a week. I said, doing what? Throwing people out of the house? So it has to be something wrong. You gotta do it the right way. You find the people who's involved with the wrong stuff, and then put them away. Don't go after somebody else. Don't go after me or after my wife or my other kids. If I was me doing something wrong, go ahead, put me away. But that's how I seen it. That's how we started the fight.
Can you, related to the settlement today, it says on the property, no seizure or forfeiture of property for simple drug possession. Are there counts outlined specifically where that applies, or what does simple drug possession mean? How does that get defined?
Sure, so it's under state law. Pennsylvania defines possession, what drug possession is, and so as long as that is the only allegation, that it's just finding drugs that aren't large enough that would constitute trying to deal drugs, it's a smaller quantity of drugs, then forfeiture, the property can't be seized for forfeiture, and the district attorney's office is prevented from filing a forfeiture action.
But that's related to a specific count or quantity of drugs or?
Yeah, the count has to be drug possession. If it's drug trafficking, then that would not apply.
And if there are other counts, you said if it's only simple possession, if there are other counts associated with it, what happens?
If there are other counts that relate to drug trafficking, yes. If it's not a forfeitable offense, however, no.
Okay.
How many people are eligible for this $3 million pot, and how will it be split up?
Sure, so there are approximately over 23,000 property owners who were caught up in the civil forfeiture scheme that Philadelphia instituted. And we do not know at this time how many people, how the categories break down. But every single person who was subjected to this unconstitutional scheme will receive up to $90 as a recognition that their rights were violated. And after that, all the innocent property owners who were never convicted of anything related to the forfeiture action will be eligible to receive up to 100% of the value of the property that they lost. And after that, if there are still remaining funds, people who were sent to diversionary programs, so those are for first-time, low-level offenders, they would be eligible to receive up to 75% of the value of their property back. If there are any remaining funds after that, a portion will go to nonprofit organizations that are primarily focused on helping communities that have been most severely ravaged by the Philadelphia's forfeiture practices.
And that's a one-time fund, right? The consent decree establishes this $3 million fund one time. It's not some ongoing fund that gets replenished.
No, that's correct. It's a one-time $3 million compensation fund.
And this settles the suit completely, correct?
That's correct.
Right.
It needs to be signed off on by the court, but because it's representing so many property owners as well, so the court needs to sign off and give approval to it. But once that happens, yes, this terminates the entire lawsuit.
How have negotiations changed since District Attorney Krasner was sworn in, if at all?
Well, after the district attorney was sworn in, that's when we started negotiating some of all the remainder claims, essentially, in good faith. The court appointed a facilitator in May of this past year, and after about 3 months of negotiations, the parties were able to come forward with this sweeping institutional reform.
Did you find this administration any more willing to negotiate than previous ones?
Yes, certainly. And I think that sends a message to all the other government officials who are coming into office because they were elected on a platform guaranteeing criminal justice reform, that they can look to this consent decree as a model.
Just to be clear, did you wait on purpose for Krasner to come into office, or that was just circumstantial?
No, we had filed this lawsuit 4 years ago, so we had been actively litigating for 4 years, and the prior administration was vigorously defending their program.
So when the administration changed, those conversations also changed in tone?
Yes, that's yeah.